Roll call, please.
Present.
Here.
Commissioner Ellenberg,
Here.
Commissioner Brown,
Here.
Commissioner Avery,
Present.
Commissioner Shoemaker, Commissioner Kuzno,
Here.
Commissioner Wayhill,
Here.
Commissioner Davis.
Here. Okay, at this time, we'll do bow our heads for a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Could we have approval of the minutes for March 15th?
So moved.
Support.
Can we have a motion and support? Any corrections? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. This is the time set aside for public comment. Any person wishing to provide comment to the board may do so. We ask that you line up on this wall over here, to the west side, to the left, to your right, and you'll have 2 minutes to speak. We ask that all speakers refrain from personal attacks against individuals. This is your time to be heard. We can do that in a civil manner. Should any speaker engage in personal attacks, I'll remind you of your requirements and ask you to please be in order. If the speaker continues to be out of order, they'll be asked to be removed from the meeting. At this time, is there any public comment? Please state your name and your city.
Neil Seward and my wife Mary Beth Seward from Flint Township. We were unable to attend your last county commissioners meeting, but we were disappointed when we watched it online and saw the way some of the people spoke to you. As a different approach, we want to say some well overdue thank yous right now. Commissioner Winfrey, we want to thank you for inviting us to the McCree Theater to watch The Soul of Etta James. That production on March 4th, it was so important. It really touched us. We hope to be able to attend many more of these events. Thank you, sir. Thank you to the commissioners that attended the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion meeting on March 8th. With your continued support, we can all make a difference in respect to these vital initiatives. Commissioners Wayhill and Dr. Brown, thank you for attending and speaking at the Flint Township Board meetings in April. Everyone that we spoke with appreciated you being there, having the opportunity to meet you, and listening to your presentations. Commissioner Ellenberg, thank you for sitting with me and explaining the items that were being discussed at the 911 Consortium meeting on April the 11th. To Sheriff Swanson and his staff, thank you for the opportunity to attend the Ignite graduation ceremony, the Education Proclamation ceremony, and the kickoff event for the Frederick Douglass Project at the county jail on April 5th. That was a special day for us and one that we will always remember. To all of the commissioners, Mr. Freeman, our corporate counsel, and all the staff heads that work in Genesee County, we want to thank all of you for your continued dedication and service to the residents of Genesee County and on a volunteer basis. If there's anything my wife and I can ever do to assist you, please let us know. And we want to close by saying we respect and appreciate all of you. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi, my name is Millie Herson, and I'm from Swartz Creek. I've been a Genesee County resident for approximately 5 years. I've moved from Wayne County. Upon moving here, yes, I love my new condo and I love my community, but I faced some, I guess, cultural shock. My parents are deaf, family's deaf, and I'm a very active member of the deaf community. When you're in Wayne County and when you're watching TV, you get captioning 24/7. Regardless if it's just the local news or if it's an emergency broadcast that's coming across the air. Here in Genesee County, and I'm bringing this to your attention because I have sent numerous emails to ABC, I think it's channel 12. I've tried to call, I've emailed, to no avail. You can probably ask any of the deaf people that are here with me this evening, and they would agree that the captioning that deaf people have in Genesee County is pathetic, pathetic. They may get partial news, they don't get all the news. If there's an emergency that comes across the air, let's say, for instance, Sheriff Swanson has something on the news, the deaf people do not have access to that because the captioning is not adequate, and that's on ABC. We know the FCC requires that they do captioning, but it's very, very inadequate, and that, I think, needs to be brought to your attention. So hopefully we can get some better services for the captioning for the deaf people in Genesee County. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi, I'm going to sign. So should I stand here? Do you want me to stand over there? I can't sign with my back to the deaf community here, so maybe I'll go around this side. Is that okay?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Diana McKittrick, and I live in Davison. I'm a Genesee County resident, have been for 52 and a half years. So I'm pretty well ingrained into Genesee County. I have a couple of complaints. There's one that I would like to add to the man who was just speaking about all the different events that people have been attending. We in the deaf community are unaware of these events. Where do we find advertisements, or where do we find the information about that? There's no mention of that. If you want to attend, we'll have an interpreter with a phone number. There's none of that information that comes to us. So there's no ASL provided, which gives us a feeling of being unwelcome. So that's one complaint. In addition, I would like to add to what was being said about captions. I know Channel 12, sometimes we see tornado warnings, and we see little lights come up on screen, and we're not sure, is it something that's imminent? Do we have time to prepare? Everything that happens comes through in spoken English, and we need to really get improvement in that area for our safety. And the last thing I would like to see is improvement in healthcare, the healthcare system, in respecting deaf people's right to communication access. Right now, we are being forced to use video remote relay, meaning the interpreter is on a monitor, a screen. They could be not from Michigan, and we're not sure if they understand us or not. We've said that we did not want video remote interpreting. My husband went to speak to a specialist and wanted to ask questions, and he said yes, and it went to Ann Arbor Hospital. The interpreter said they went to Alcoholics Anonymous as a misinterpretation. I caught that and was able to correct the error, but there's one hospital here in Flint that is forcing all patients to use video remote interpreting. How can we look at a screen when we're talking about issues as important as our health? We'd like to see an improvement in that area. We're very fortunate and thankful to have interpreters here tonight, so thank you for providing that access. I would like to have Genesee County, which is our home, be open to everyone with no barriers.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Teresa Miracle. I'm from Communication Access Center. I'm the director, and I've seen many deaf people have communication access issues. Just like what Diana was mentioning, communication is a huge issue. I know that currently there are many medical centers who are using video remote interpreting solely, and that is not equitable for people who are deaf blind, for people who are deaf and have dementia, for people who are very vulnerable and have varying range of language usage. So there's a lot of issues that come into play. There are hospitals that have live on-site interpreters. There's one hospital in the area, others are using VRI, and other medical centers are using video remote as well, and we don't have a choice. They are making these determinations about what's best for us, best for me in terms of my communication. How do they know? They don't know. So it's very frustrating for a lot of deaf people to try to accommodate hearing people. Everybody else has a choice as to which facility they go into. You can go into any facility you want, but we're not able to do that. We're being forced to go to a place where they either have an interpreter on site or be forced to go to a place where I'm going to have to use video remote interpreting. Accessibility issue is very discriminatory. It really is, and deaf people have a right to communication. That's one area we really need to focus on. And also, I do want to say many, many thank yous for your support for our deaf seniors. I'm very, very excited now the deaf blind are able to participate in meetings and communicate freely, and at various events, interpreters are being provided. So I do want to say thank you to that. Really, really, from my heart, really appreciate it.
Thank you. Is there any other comments? Any other public comments? Third time, any other comments? Seeing none, public comment closed. At this time, we will have a report. Hold on, I got a script for it. Okay. Director Hayduck will now present the annual equalization presentation, which includes information about taxable values and other information. So, Director, if you would like to do that. Everybody should have a handout.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'll give you a little bit of background for those that are just hearing this for the first time. So in your package, you have the actual equalization report, and that report and that's what you're going to approve tonight that we have to send to the state. This is after all the months of working with the local units, we've came up with our assessed values. So that report only has assessed values. So we like to do the presentation so that we can show historical trends and show you what the taxable value changes are for this year. So a little bit of, there's 3 levels of property tax system. There's the local level. It actually starts with the local level because they're the ones who do all the assessments, the boots on the ground, valuing the properties. The county level, which we go out and do appraisals and we base on sales studies, and then the state level, which then we have to equalize with the state. So we all have the same goal, fair equitable assessments at 50% of true cash value. So a little bit about the equalization department. We have our equalization coordinator, Kim Moores. She's been in our department for 23 years. She oversees all the local unit databases, all the imports, exports. She keeps the local databases in balance with the county on a monthly basis, and she monitors the Michigan Tax Tribunal values that are in contention. So when the commercial properties they file with the Michigan Tax Tribunal, she keeps track of all that to see what the value loss is going to be to our taxable value. And she works with the local assessors. She's our main contact person. We have 4 examiners. So these examiners go out on sales that come through our office for commercial, industrial, and ag properties. And they also do our appraisals that set our studies for the year. So, and together they have valued over 1,500 ag, commercial, industrial properties in 2022 for our 2023 equalization. So our land records, we have 1 employee in that department, Trina Sykes. She's been there for 8 years. She processes all the land divisions, the splits, combinations, except for the city of Flint, they do their own. And she did over 900 of those last year. She reviews the legal document descriptions for the Register of Deeds and the county treasurer when they request. She did over 1,500 of those requests this past year. She enters the sales transfers for the documents in the computer for our sales study. That would be all our residential, commercial, ag, industrial. So she's done over 12,000 of those in 2022. She also, that includes, so if there's a property transfer affidavit, the local units send those to us so that we can check to make sure we haven't missed any sales. So, and she also does the maps for our department. She gets those to the local units, and she assists the customers at the counter. So the general fund budget, the main source of revenue is the property taxes. So 49.32% of that revenue comes from property taxes. This year, our Genesee County assessed values are up 11.62%. And our taxable values are up 7.44%. So we've had some major investments during for our 2023. We had over $100 million in residential new value for 2023. And we've had in personal property, we had over 57 million consumer energy and over 3 million for Michigan Electric Transmission Company. So in our, we've had commercial and industrial new, so we like to do a little bit of highlights on those. So we've had over 11.5 million in new value that's on this list. So I've included some pictures of some of the properties. We've had Atlas Township, they put in a new kennel and training facility. We had Davison Township, they had Dairy Queen, Fenton Township, a senior living, Flint Township, fitness center, Genesee Township, an asphalt plant, a discount tire in Grand Blanc Township, Montrose Township, they had a new retail building with a Dollar Tree and a Dollar Barn. Mount Morris, they added a Jimmy John's. We had a dealership, auto dealership in Mundy and a warehouse storage facility in Mundy. And then we had Thetford, they had some new commercial buildings. Vienna Township had an Aldi. The city of Flint, we had some new grow facility. Fenton City, we had a warehouse storage, a couple of unit of those, and then a flex mall, industrial flex mall, and then in Burton, another, they had a senior. So all those totaled, this isn't all the new construction, this is, we highlight the larger value ones. So some historical information from 2014 to 2023 by our classifications of property. So we have our ag class. So you can see the values have been increasing since the 2014. Our increase from 2022 to 23 for our ag class was 11.29%. Increase for our commercial class from last year to this year, 7.13%. Now, the percent that I'm giving you is for assessed value, because that's what we're focusing on is assessed value, but you can see you can see that the taxable values have increased as well. Industrial properties, the assessed value increase, 9.71. Our residential properties have increased the assessed values, 13.54%. Our personal property increase for assessed value was 1.98%. So our total increase for assessed value, 11.62%. And there's a graph that lists the percents from all the previous years. Since 2014, they have been steadily increasing. Well, we had a couple decreases, but better than our previous. Oh, sorry, it's not going in, sorry, apologize. So here's our rankings for our assessed value rankings. So we have the top 5, they've, let me get to my slide, my notes. They have stayed the same, our top 5. We have Grand Blanc Township, Fenton Township, Flint Township, City of Flint, and City of Burton. And then these are the rankings by our percent change. So you have City of Mount Morris, Montrose Township, Fenton Township, City of Burton, and City of Flint, 5. And our taxable value history from 2014 to 23. You see in 2014, it was a negative. Now if it was negative 0.37, we're up to 7.44 this year. And then our rankings, we have the top 5, Grand Blanc Township, Fenton Township, Flint Township, City of Flint, and City of Burton. And then our changes by percent, or ranking by percent. And this is a total, the grand total for taxable values that are over 500 million. This includes our special acts rolls and your total taxable value. So you have Grand Blanc Township, Fenton Township, Flint Township, City of Flint, City of Burton, Davison Township, Mundy Township, and City of Fenton all have values, taxable values over 500 million. So we had a little different bit of scenario this year with our inflation rate multiplier. So the inflation rate multiplier is what is used in calculation of your Headley millage reduction fractions and your cap value for your taxable value. This year it was 1.079. So we had to apply it 2 different ways, because for your cap value formula for your taxes, what they're capped at, you cannot go greater than 5%. So when the taxable value is calculated, you can only use that CPI of 5%. But when you calculate for your millage reduction fraction, you can use the 1.079. So that's going to result in less rollbacks, because you can increase up to 7.9% instead of the 5%. So you have that gap between those two. So we're going to see a lot less rollbacks this year.
So I'm sorry, I have no idea, what that means.
So
you
when,
break down a little
yep,
more?
I sure can. So when you,
You're
for-
doing great. too,
Pardon
by-
me?
You're doing great, by the way.
oh, sorry, I'm like
Break
trying to
that down.
talk loud and not. So with the millage reduction fraction, is what gets applied to your previous tax, your tax rate, your millage rate, to say if you're gonna roll back your millage. So you cannot collect, your millage rate cannot be over that increase in your taxable value. So because the increase is 5% in the taxable value, we can go up to 7.9%. So you have that gap between the two, so it allows you to, it allows your taxable value to increase more before you have to roll back your millage. So. Did that help, or, okay, sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that, we'll have a whole nother thing on that. So, and for 2023, the property values are still up in City of Flint, 13.56%. Taxable value is up 8.29. We have less contention in value for our Michigan tax tribunals this year. We have for 2022, it was almost 9 million and 429,000 for 2021, 0 for 2020, 2019, 0. So our total is just over 9 million. And what happens with that is those come off as those tribunals get settled. So for 2023, they have till later in the year to file their appeals, so we won't know how many we have for 2023 yet. But I estimate it'll be around the same number as the past years.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
That last slide, the very bottom, it looked like there was an astronomical amount back 10 years ago. Tell me.
There was over 280 million.
Yeah, so
when all the values were dropping so low, and there was a lot of appeals.
And so many more people were appealing based on the fact that the market was dropping and
Yeah.
the value. Okay.
Yeah, we've had. And then our land bank, 550, yeah.
I'm kind of going backwards, but.
Oh, sorry.
You know, like, on page 31,
Yes.
I'm just really, really super impressed that for the city of Flint, because I came on board in 2016, and the taxable value in 2016 was .05. So to see it at 8.2, that's pretty amazing that,
Yeah,
you know, it's moved up that much, and, you know,
The
people want.
sales have really
are
been,
here,
yeah,
so, okay.
yeah, supporting these, so. So our land bank 550 rolls, so from last year to this year, we had a decrease, or I'm sorry, an increase in the amount that are on there, 756,000, which is a 3% in our taxable value. The slide says that this is a minus, but it's basically, it's a minus because last year we had a decrease. But what happens, it's still a plus because it's coming from our zero, from being exempt. It's going on to the 550 roll, which it'll still pay 50%. So we're still getting more tax dollars. But last year it was, we had a significant decrease in it, but it changes constantly with the, but yeah, so these will be reported on our special acts roll, and we will get the 50% taxes for that. So the SEV and taxable value for 2024, we still estimate that they're increasing, both of them. So, yeah. I don't know if you guys have any questions on the reports too that are in the file.
Commissioner Lloyd?
All right, thank you. Awesome job. Thank you so much for bringing the information before us. Very much enlightening and educational at the same time. On page 31, where it has that the property valuations are up 13.56%, particularly in the city of Flint, which is awesome news. In previous slides, you had references to the timeframe between 2014 and 2023. Is that 13.56% an increase over that period of time, 2014 to 2023? Or is that a 13.56 increase just in that 1 year?
Just for the 1 year.
Oh, okay, all right.
Correct.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you. I
Madam
know-
Chair? it
Yes.
would, if we could get this moved now while the equalization director is still
Okay.
here.
So we need a motion
So moved.
and no further discussion? Go ahead.
Just
Mr. Lloyd.
clarification, are we moving this to accept this? Is that?
To
Okay, the action.
To accept that report that was submitted. This is just the presentation, but yeah, you're going to accept that report of assessed
Okay,
values.
okay,
So we can send it to the state.
Yes.
okay, all right, thank you.
So any other discussions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you for your report.
Thank you.
We'll go down to the Flint Community Players.
The communication is on file in our office and part of the agenda. There's no action required.
Okay. We have appointments, Resolution 2023-147, approval of a request to appoint Joshua Freeman, John Kerr, Crystal Simpson, Derek Bradshaw, Ray Zanuck as members of the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority.
I move it. Support.
So we have a motion and a support. Any discussion? Mr. Kuzno?
How long is this term for?
They are, I believe, 6-year terms, but the board is inactive. There's
I know
only,
that, I just want to know if there's an end
so
date,
this would be
that's
the
all.
remainder of that term. The current, or the people that were previously serving on that board had expired in like 2020, I believe it was, and it's a 6-year term, so there's 3 years left on it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other
I have
discussion?
a question.
Mr.
Which
Lloyd?
committee did these come through, this resolution come from? I don't remember seeing it.
Yeah, so these appointments don't go through committees. We did talk about it in committee, though. I don't remember if it was government ops or finance last week. The city of Flint has got a project going on, and it's the old Smith Village. You'll remember across from University Estates, there's one piece of property, like a $100 piece of property, that's included there, and it's in the brownfield that needs to be removed from the plan so that they can combine the lots and move forward with about an $8 million project. So it's really for like a special one-time deal to take care of that one piece of property.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Madam Chair, there is a add-on appointment. Commissioners, you do have that in front of you. Commissioner Ellenberg would like to be appointed as an alternate to the 911 Consortium, so that if one of the two appointees that are there now aren't able to make it, she would be able to attend those meetings and vote on behalf of the county.
So moved.
Support.
All those in favor?
Can I ask a question?
Opposed? Yes, go ahead.
Who are our two current appointees?
Commissioner Davis and Commissioner Winfrey.
Okay, all right, so you'd be an alternate if one of them cannot
Yes.
attend?
You know,
Okay,
'cause,
thank you.
That's a fairly large board, and sometimes, it's hard sometimes to get, when you have a large board, to get them all there, and,
Right, or to get a
sometimes you're not a quorum.
Right,
So,
okay.
Mr. Kuzma?
I would like to be appointed as a second alternative in case both of them can't make it.
Can I make a substitute motion to amend to substitute motion to include Commissioner Cousineau as a second alternate?
Any further discussion on that?
I do have discussion.
Okay.
I would like to see appointments, I don't have an issue with the appointments that have come
Just
before.
speak up so that our interpreter can hear.
Thank you. I don't have any concern with the appointments that are before us today. I support them 100%. I'd like to see appointments come through the committee process, just in case there's an appointment that ends up coming here that maybe we do want to have some discussion about, maybe want to make some recommendations, or just kind of better understand what's happening. I don't think it's a good practice for us to, I think we should have some discussion in the committee setting on all appointments before they come to the board. That's just my sentiment.
So I think we have a motion on the floor for the amendment. Do we have to vote on the amendment first? So the amendment was to add Mr. Kuzno as second alternate to 911. All those in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried on the amendment. So all those in favor of myself and Mr. Kuzno being the alternates for 911, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. So, and then the next one is our standing reports, Board Commissioner. Approval of a request by Genesee County Sheriffs to travel the International Associate of Auto Theft Investigation Conference in Bloomington, Minnesota. The dates of travel are May 1st. Total is $5,721.45. And it's been waived through the full board because of when it's being held.
Support.
So you have a motion and a support. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Resolution 2, approval of the fiscal year ending 2022 amended deficit elimination plan and directing the Office of Fiscal Services to submit the plan to the state of Michigan. This item was waived through the Finance Committee to the board.
Move it.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion and a support. Any discussion on this?
I do.
Mr. Lloyd?
Somehow I missed this in finance. But my question is, this is a deficit elimination plan with regard to what? What is this deficit elimination? Is this a general fund deficit elimination plan? Is it something else? What is it?
Crystal is here and can speak to that.
Thank you.
Evening.
Good
So we approved actually previously the G-card deficit elimination plan. Unfortunately, it's kind of luck of the draw when you file something with the state. We had the similar format previous years. I got a call, they didn't like the format this year, so I had to change the format to what they preferred. They also wanted 3 additional funds added. 2 of them are just debt service funds for debt payments. Those are due October 1st each year, so we have to have the payment moved before October 1st, so we do it in September. So it causes a negative unrestricted fund balance, even though in total it's 0. So they wanted that to be shown on that report. They also wanted the motor pool fund, which is the parks as well as the regular motor pool. There's a 2-part test. So one of them is, do you have a fund balance deficit, which was no. But the second piece is your current assets more than your current liabilities. And it was not. So I just had to give them information for the next year's budget to show that we would be fine and we wouldn't be dipping into fund balance to show a deficit amount for fiscal year '23. And I talked with him back and forth to make sure he was going to be okay with it when you approve this today, so I shouldn't have to come back again. But there's no additional transfers needed, just the one that was approved previously.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. At this time, we'll have Community Economic Development, Dale Wayhill.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. Community Economic Development met last week, and we've got two items. Number one is RES-2023-150, approval of an agreement between Genesee County and Success Mortgage Partners Incorporated to provide for down payment assistance to eligible home buyers.
Move it. Support.
Okay, we have a motion and support. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
The second item is Resolution-2023-151, approval of Genesee County's 2023 action plan.
We have motion and support. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Do you have a report at this time?
I do not, other than the fact that at next week's Community and Economic Development Committee meeting, we're going to hear from the Executive Director of the Genesee County Conservation District. I was trying to get Tyler Ross-Messler from the Chamber, but he's going to be out of town. So we'll have the Conservation District come in and talk about what they're doing for community development, and Tyler will come probably sometime in late May or in June.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, we'll have Finance, Martin Cousineau, Chairperson Beverly Brown, Vice Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Resolution 23-152, approval of a proposed amendment to the 22-23 appropriations resolution for various line items as described in the attached budget adjustment form.
Support.
Any discussion on this?
Yeah, Madam Chair, since we've gone over most of these at committee, would you be objective, would you have any objection to moving 1 through whatever? 1 through 13?
Is that,
Madam Chair, I would prefer to read them off. I know it's slow,
Okay.
but I think for the benefit of the audience and the residents that they need to hear this.
okay, we'll leave it to the decision of the chairperson of that committee.
Move Resolution 23-153, approval of,
Oh, we didn't vote on the
Yeah,
first
we
one.
didn't take a vote on
I'm sorry.
item 1.
Okay, sorry. Is there any discussion on Resolution 152? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Madam Chair, excuse me, through you to Mr. Cousineau, am I able to do that? Is it possible to read them all through and then we vote on them at one time? I think that's what my colleague was asking for, so that you
that?
still can read them all and then we vote on them as a package?
I don't care.
Okay.
C2, 23-153, approval of a request to create, post, and fill one friend of the court FOC deputy position and upgrade the FOC sergeant to a lieutenant. The cost for this position will be paid for by FOC's account numbers, 2150 ending in 702.000.
Madam Chair, I don't mean to interrupt, Mr. Cousineau, but the one problem that could come up doing it this way is if somebody wants to vote no on one of them. So the better
why
way
don't-
is
you
if
know-
somebody wanted to vote no, they better exclude it now before Mr. Cousineau gets through reading all of them. That's your potential problem.
Okay, I'm going to go back to the original way.
Okay. So, although, is there any discussion on item 2? Seeing none?
Was there a motion and a second?
Oh, I thought there was a motion.
I
and a
don't
second.
know
Is
that
there a
there was.
motion?
Well, I moved it.
And
so-
I'll support it.
Okay. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
C3, 23-154, approval of a proposed amendment to the 22-23 appropriations resolution transferring $119,000 from fund balance to the account numbers listed. This amendment allows for the payment of overdue bills.
Support.
Is there any discussion? Do we have anybody from the veterans here? Could you explain the plan and what you came up with to come up with the 119? Or,
Absolutely. So upon my leadership role, we realized that some of the line items for the budget were underfunded. So meeting with Patrick in Fiscal Services, he's our accountant, he gave us a little spreadsheet and was, advised us to move these amounts that are in your packets. For public transportation, we have $50,000. Advertising, $30,000. Our telephones, $4,000. Peacetime grants, $10,000. And the Veterans Relief Fund, $25,000. That will put us on a projected budget to be on budget.
I have, one question was, I know there was a contract that you were concerned about whether you could get out with 103.9.
Yes,
Was that able to get out of the contract? Are we still in that contract?
we're still in it.
Okay, there's legally,
I submitted it to corporate counsel and was advised that it doesn't look like there's any way to back out, mainly because we used, or signed the previous director signed a contract that 103.9 created and not one of ours.
I know 103 has been, a really good partner with the veterans in the
Absolutely.
past. And, so I think you'll be able to utilize that well and to advertise the services that we have and the events that we have, so.
Absolutely. I mean, I didn't want to ruin any of these contracts because we've been doing business with them for so long and they're great. So
All
we
right.
want to keep
Any-
that relationship.
Well, thank you for checking into that.
Yeah.
So, any other discussion?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I just have a question. So of the 119,000, the breakdown is as you just described it.
Yes.
I seem to remember from the committee meeting that that you referred to it as all advertising. Is that not quite right?
No, it's not all. Just the $30,000. So we were under budgeted, and there was past due bills. So the $30,000 is going to cover not only, I think it was a $24,000 radio show that wasn't paid.
Right.
And then we'll have a little bit left over for the commercials and stuff that we have for the
But
remaining.
there are
of the
some
year.
items that aren't advertising related, am I right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
So public transportation, that's going to be our Vets to Wellness program. I honestly couldn't tell you why it was under budgeted $50,000, but based on like the projection, we're not going to have enough funds in
Okay.
there to.
I remembered it being advertising, but now it's a fuller explanation, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
No worries, yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other discussions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
C4, 23-155, approval of a grant award from the National Recreation and Parks Association in the amount of $20,000 for the purpose of advancing equitable access to youth sports in the city of Flint Parks. The revenue from this grant will be deposited in account number ending in 674.029.
Support.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
C5, Resolution 23-156, approval of proposed amendment to the 22-23 appropriations resolution allowing for the reallocation and recognition of funds.
Move approval.
Well, I moved it, we're just looking for support.
Any
so thank you.
discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
C6, Resolution 23-157, approval I move approval of a request to create, post, and fill one secretary position and eliminate an administrative secretary position at the Genesee County Health Department.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Support.
Okay. All those in favor, or is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
C7, I move 23158, forwarding to receive and file a copy of the paid county bills for the weeks ending in 3/12/23, 3/19/23, 3/26/23, and 4/2/23 in the total amount of $21,889,269.53.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Move C8, Resolution 23159, approval of postponed amendment, or proposed amendment to the 22-23 appropriations resolution, updating Fund 2727 to align with the 22-23 Head Start contract.
We have a motion and a support. Is there any discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Move 23160, approval of a grant award from M Parks and MDHHS in the amount of $18,076 to provide for technical assistance to the park adopters at the City of Flint Parks.
Support.
We have a motion and a support. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Move Resolution 23161, approval of a grant award from the Ruth Mott Foundation in the amount of $400,000 to provide support and activities in the City of Flint Parks.
Support.
We have a move and a support. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Move 23162, approval of a request by Genesee County's Health Department to travel to the National TB Conference in Atlanta, Georgia. Total cost for travel not to exceed $3,557.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
I move 23163, approval of a proposed amendment to the 22-23 appropriations resolution to allow for additional emergency and rental assistance funding in the amount of $3,561,000, well, what do we got here?
$3,561,405.
Thank you.
We have a motion. Do we have a support?
Support.
Okay. Any discussion on this?
I have a comment.
Mr. Lloyd?
So through you, Madam Chair, to residents that are watching or attending the meeting that may be in need of emergency rental assistance, there is funding available. There is in fact a waiting list, as we were told, but there is funding available. And residents would need to contact G-Card
Yes.
to find out, how to apply, how to qualify, those kinds of things. But I know that this has been a program that's been in place, but it's significant, again, to know that residents have somewhere that they can go to receive assistance and aid for rental funding challenges that they may have. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I, recommend that even though there is a waiting list, continue to sign up for it anyway, because sometimes other ones may not qualify, and then that will move your name up. So if, I know this assistance is very helpful. I've had people that have contacted me and they were able to get assistance on the rent and not have to move out. So anyway, so it's been a motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Move Resolution 23164, approval of the proposed amendment to the 22-23 appropriations resolution reallocating expenditures within Genesee County's Parks and Recreation Commission budget.
Any discussion? those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Do you have a report at this time, Mr.
Not at this
Kuzma?
time, Madam Chair.
Okay. We'll go on to item D, governmental operations. James Avery, chairperson, Sean Shoemaker, vice chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I could go through 1 through 3 separate, but if I could group 4, 5, and 6, since they're all grant asks.
The only thing that, I mean,
I'm
just-
going to read them.
Oh,
I
you're
just
going
wanted
to
one
read
vote
Okay.
for those 3.
Yeah, because I feel that we have, we're trying to help, the people that are having problems hearing. So I feel if we were
Right.
doing it, we have an interpreter, so they're understanding the process, and I think it's important. So thank you.
Yeah, so I'm reading through.
Okay,
but I
thank
just
you.
wanted- yeah. Okay, for D1, approval of the purchase order to Josh and Paper and Packaging for the fiscal year ending 2023 in an amount not to exceed $62,000 for cleaning and paper products. The cost of purchase order will be paid from the following accounts.
Is-
I make,
You're making a
yeah,
motion?
make a motion.
Support.
Yeah,
We need a support.
I supported it.
yeah.
Any discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Yeah, just 4, 5, and 6 will be one to one vote.
Okay.
Okay. D2, approval of a grant award from the Michigan Supreme Court in the amount of $593,301 for the purchase of implementing a virtual backlog response docket. This grant award will provide for various positions. The budget for this grant will be uploaded per the attached budget forms.
We have a motion to support. We voting on them now or not?
Yes.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
D3, approval of the agreement between Genesee County and the City of Flint in the amount not to exceed $2,410,471 to provide for the operation of pre-arraignment holding facility. The term of this agreement is October 1, 2022 through September 30, 2023.
Okay, so it's been moved in support. Any discussion on this? This had to do with the lockup, and now we have something that we have in front of us to vote on. So although, seeing no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, the next 3 will be read through with one motion, please. Approval of request by, this is D4, approval of the request by Genesee County Circuit Court to apply for a grant in the amount of $475,000 from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services for the purpose of providing additional funding to address changes caused by the raise the age legislation. D5, approval of the request by the Genesee County Circuit Court to apply for the fiscal year 24 Department of Health and Human Services, Child and Parent Legal Representation Grant in the amount of $250,000 from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services for the purpose of providing pre-petition and post-adjudication auxiliary legal services. D6, approval of a request by Genesee County Circuit Court to apply for a grant in the amount of $25,000 from the Michigan Arts and Cultural Council grant for the purpose of enhancing the art program provided by court-involved youth at Genesee County Juvenile Justice Center, and the community-based school. Grant match is budgeted in the current fiscal year budget.
Do we have a motion?
Make a motion.
Do we need a support?
Support.
Okay, a motion to support. Any discussion on these 3 items? Not seeing any. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Is there any report at this time?
I'd like to share that we have reached out to the Disability Network for some leadway into the emergency preparedness activities that we have on the table. So I would like for them to come and present at our committee meeting next week.
Okay,
Okay,
Thank
thank you.
you.
That's in my report.
thank you. We'll go on to Human Services. Charles Winfrey, chairperson, Delrico Lloyd, vice chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 1, motion to approve proposed amendment to the 2022-23 appropriations resolution to all for carryover funds from Genesee County's Head Start program.
Support.
The motion is supported. Any discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Item 2, I move approval of a request to eliminate Genesee County's Board of Health and replace it with quarterly updates to Genesee County's Human Services Committee.
Support. I had a motion and a support. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Item 3, I move approval of a grant award from Oakland Livingston Human Service Agency in the amount of $29,000 to provide for a diaper bank program.
I have a motion and a support. Any discussion?
I have a question, Madam Chair. Is
Yes.
this an existing program or is it a new program?
Sade, can you speak to that?
Hello. So it's actually a continuation of a program that was started last fiscal year, excuse me. This is a new grant agreement, however.
So it's an existing program, but we're adding new grant dollars to it? Okay. Is there another diaper bank in the community, or is this the only one? Do you know?
As far as I know, there are programs out there that offer these services, but there's not necessarily a bank. The diaper bank that is being discussed right now is solely for diapers and diapering supplies such as wipes, ointment,
Okay.
things along those lines.
I-
The other programs that are available are solely, well, I don't want to say solely, but they're pretty much focused on parenting and different supplies.
Okay. I remember at one time that Angie Hendershot from ABC 12 and Phil Schultz had what they called a diaper bank, but I just wondered if there was any connection between their work and what you're doing. Not to your knowledge? Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe, I don't know. They called it the diaper bank, and they were
Partnership
raising.
food.
Diaper bank.
Does that still exist?
I think hers is a diaper drive, this is a diaper bank, and I think there's a distinction.
Okay. I think they use the same term, which is why I caught it.
It's basically sponsored by Alga Credit Union,
Mm-hmm.
and I have not, and I know Angie Hundershot is in that, but I don't know where the diapers go from there, once they reach.
Phil Schultz is the,
Distributor?
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
So Phil Schultz is in on that.
Thank you,
Okay.
Sade.
So no connection, but all doing good in the community. Thank you.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Item 4, approval of an agreement, I move approval of an agreement between Genesee County and Genesee Health Plan in an amount not to exceed $6,606,721 to allow Genesee County to provide a healthcare service delivery system for uninsured, low-income residents of Genesee County. The cost for this agreement will be paid from the health services millage.
Support.
I have motion and a support. Any discussion on this?
A question, Madam Chair. The millage generates about 10 million, am I right? So the balance between the 10 million and what goes to the health plan, how do we use those dollars?
Yeah, so this year, we're scheduled to use, and Crystal, correct me if I'm wrong here, about $2 million for those individuals that are lodged at the Genesee County Jail. Those folks, the majority of folks there are presumed to be innocent, and they would be eligible to be on Genesee Health Plan if they weren't lodged, so we use some of the money for that. We also use some of the money for operations in the Genesee County Health Department to offset that cost, and then we do have a fund balance available.
And all of the expenditures are consistent with the original millage language, I take it?
They are.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Freeman.
Any other
Yeah,
discussion?
Madam Chair, just to follow up on that, if Crystal, if she could give this board a breakdown of all of those remaining funds.
Okay, yeah, Crystal.
You want that tonight, or you want to?
No, she doesn't have to do it tonight.
Yeah, okay, I was gonna say, I don't know if she has all that off the top of her head, but we can get it for you.
She has
I
it.
just looked at it, somebody actually just called me about it. So the 2 million, like you said, for the inmate healthcare, the amount on here for the Genesee Health Plan, there's also 1.5 million that gets distributed to the hospitals for indigent care. So Genesis, McLaren, and Hurley. There's the small amount for health department, and there is a fund balance in there that is being monitored and used as you approve expenses.
All right, thank you, Crystal.
Sure.
Any other, Mr. Kuzno?
Crystal, is the amount of money that's being distributed to the hospitals for the indigent, Are all those indigents Genesee County residents?
So the-
I
Tracking
can't
of that.
remember how that was worded, but
Yeah.
I believe so.
So their total uncompensated care is far greater than the $1.5 million. Previous board put a cap on that of 1.5 million. They probably have tens of millions of dollars of uncompensated care for residents of Genesee County. 1.5 is just a drop in the bucket of what their actual costs are.
I'm aware of how that system works, but I just wanted to make sure that it was going towards Genesee County residents, not surrounding area residents that come in there, but obviously, it's gonna fall under that,
For sure.
yeah.
Again, getting back to the fund balance, that's just unallocated funds?
Yeah, so any amount that's unspent is kept in that separate fund for those services on the ballot language. So you'd have to approve another expense that's allowable under that millage wording.
Any other discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Is there any report at this time? Any report?
No report at this time, thank you.
Yeah, I was going to say that for you. Anyway, thank you. Public Works, Del Rico Lloyd, Chairperson, Sean Shoemaker, Vice Chair.
Madam Chair, two resolutions before us from the Public Works Committees. The first is Resolution 2023-175, approval of a contract between Genesee County and Paramount Building Incorporation in an amount not to exceed $103,814.00 to provide for roof and skylight replacement at Genesee County's Park and Recreation Commission Administration Building. Move approval.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The second of the two resolutions is Resolution Number 2023-176, which is the approval of a purchase order to Michigan Playgrounds for the fiscal year ending 2023 in an amount not to exceed $51,441.00 to provide for the purchase of engineered wood fiber. Move approval.
Support.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
There's no report from the Public Works Committee at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any unfinished business?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
We do have two items that are before you that came late. The first one is the one dealing with senior services. At our previous board meeting, the board approved a program with Family Services Agency for medical transport of eligible seniors in Genesee County. Within that program was funding to purchase 2 vehicles. Because these are being purchased with millage dollars, those vehicles will be titled in Genesee County's name. So we're going to purchase them through our motor pool and then charge the mileage to the millage. But that was not clear in the resolution at the time. So we need approval from this board to authorize the purchase of 2 vehicles. There is no increase in cost or change to the program, it's just who's going to purchase.
Make a
Is there a
motion of
motion?
approval, yes.
A second?
Support.
Okay. Any discussion? Mr. Lloyd?
So in a previous, thank you, Madam Chair, in a previous resolution, you're suggesting that the make, model, type of vehicle, the cost, that's already been communicated to us?
No, the cost was not communicated because we will purchase off the state bid and we'll purchase basically a fleet vehicle that is determined by General Motors. The cost is determined by General Motors based on the need. So we're going to need a, for the vehicle, and then it'll need to be outfitted with a lift for one of them, and then the other one will be a small SUV like an Equinox or a Traverse.
Great, thank
Any
you.
other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Madam Chair, there's a request here from the Sheriff's Office. They can maybe better explain it than I can, asking for some personnel changes. So the undersheriff is here.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Through the chair, we had a sergeant that was assigned to the front of the court, and he was next on the promotion list. We had a lieutenant go out on workers' comp, So that sergeant was promoted to lieutenant and then assigned to the jail. Now, he is a defined benefit lieutenant, so their costs are much higher than defined contribution. So we ask for some leeway sometimes because we have to shuffle these people around, these employees around, if we can find a spot for them that the cost doesn't go, most of it, against the general fund. So friend of the court is willing to take him back as a lieutenant, as you just approved that, but I have to fill that spot with another lieutenant. Well, I anticipated that lieutenant coming back from workers' comp, but he didn't. So we have, the next person to be promoted is Justin Hunt. He's a sergeant that's assigned to Arrowhead. So most of his funding comes from the Mott College, the Mott grant. So if I promote him and put him in jail, now we're down a person that is, he's fit for this Arrowhead duty. What we'd like to do is upgrade his position. The Mott grant has already authorized us to do that. It's not costing any money out of general fund. And we want to promote the next person on the list. And like I said, the stuff flows so fast. He's a DC person, so most of the cost from the defined benefit is going to go to the friend of the court, 66% of that. And like I said, we're also assigning another deputy from the courts who's defined benefit to friend of the court, because we are getting 8 people back next week from the police academy that we can supply the courts with. So that evens us out there. So we're just asking for permission to upgrade this person from sergeant to lieutenant in Arrowhead and be able to make all those moves. It's going to save money. It's going to save overtime, because if I can't do that, then I cannot move Lieutenant Sanchez to friend of the court. So we're going to still have to incur those costs until this request goes through all the board steps.
Is there any discussion?
I'll move it. So
Okay,
we can.
I'll
Support.
move it.
Support.
We have a move and support. Any discussion on this? Mr. Kuzno?
Yeah, just a question. This hasn't gone through, obviously, the normal process. Has this been passed through Crystal, the finance department, to verify that it's going to save the county money?
I know we talked about it. I don't have an official, but it's none of its general funds.
Pardon?
66% of Lieutenant Sanchez comes from FOC grant.
Yeah, I got that.
So
yeah.
it does save. I mean, and if I don't, then we're gonna have to keep him. I can't send him to friend of the court, because if I do that, then it's overtime. I just anticipated this other lieutenant coming back from workers' comp. Unfortunately, he's not.
So the only difficulty I see is the Arrowhead project is for community policing. So if you have someone charged to that grant, but you're putting them in the jail, they're not doing what the grant is funding us to do. So you're right, if this had gone through Minute Track, I could have looked at that and provided feedback, but here we are.
So you don't have any feedback at the moment?
No, I mean, you can't charge someone to a grant that's not doing the grant work. So if he's
So
being
what you're saying is
promoted
that's
and working on
questionable?
Arrowhead, that's okay to still charge the grant. But if he's being promoted and shifted to the jail, that would be a general fund cost.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Okay, so it's okay then? Or it is
That's the
not?
person assigned to Arrowhead?
Yes.
Then no.
Doesn't meet the requirements of the grant?
No, I think what the undersheriff is saying is that this person that's in Arrowhead will be promoted to lieutenant in Arrowhead.
Yes,
Okay.
correct. I'm sorry.
Sorry, you said it's shifted to the jail, and that's where I was like,
then
ah.
it-
No, if I have to put him into the jail.
Okay.
It won't be under Arrowhead, it'll be under general fund.
Hunt?
Yes. If,
The extra cost would be in the jail and general fund.
but he's not being sent to the jail, he's staying in Arrowhead as a lieutenant. We're upgrading the position from, remember we talked about it? Upgraded from sergeant to lieutenant.
So he's
and
not
staying where
working
he's
in the
leaving.
jail?
No, he's gonna stay
Okay.
right where he's
We keep
at.
saying jail, so that's where I'm getting confused. If he stays on Arrowhead and they will cover the additional cost, then that's fine. But if he's going to be assigned to the jail, then that's a different story.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Can you explain the urgency of this, why we need to make a decision tonight?
Yes, because if not, then we have to keep Lieutenant Sanchez at the jail, because we can't send him to friend of the court, and his cost is still gonna come out of general fund. And it is a 66% savings,
Instead
correct,
of-
Crystal?
Grant.
Yes.
Because if I do send him, ma'am, then I have to pay overtime.
So the 66% savings, are you referring to that in terms of the defined contribution over the long term? Or is this just a one-time 66% savings?
So what he's referring to there is FO, the friend of the court grant covers the 66%, and then general fund, covers the other percentage. So when you have somebody who's a higher cost individual and we can shift them to that grant, it takes the burden off
That
of
absorbs
general
it,
fund.
I see.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other discussions?
Yeah, just a question. Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Kuzno?
It sounded like you said you did have some conversation with the funder, which is the CS Mott Foundation, about this?
That is correct, yes.
And you have agreement from them to do what you're doing?
Yes.
Based on the funding for Operation Arrowhead?
That's correct.
Okay, that's all I wanted to ask. Thank you.
Mr. Kuzno?
Okay, so in this whole overview of shifting people around, that 66% savings from the friend of the court, then will that, all that 66%, will that go back to the general fund? Or, that's probably not the best way to phrase that. But it'll take that burden off, but will some of that savings there be taken up by some of these moving around where people get raises?
Really?
So there was the budget to actual that was brought at one point where they were going to have a budget amendment for the sheriff department. They decided to shift some of those staff, that was part of this request, to help reduce the cost for the rest of the fiscal year so that they wouldn't be over budget, as we get towards the end of the fiscal year. So this was part of that plan that we talked through, to shift some of that cost out of general fund to help reduce what they are charging to general fund. So that's part of that plan. So it would reduce the costs, the current costs that are going to general fund, to help right-size the overage from the previous quarters.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I did notice something in the memo from the sheriff. It says Ruth Mott Foundation, and I don't believe that's correct. It should be the Charles Stewart Mott Foundation. So just a point to make, I don't know that we're adopting this.
We'll make sure that the resolutions as written is
Okay,
correct.
thank you.
Okay, any more discussion? Mr. Brown?
This is just a part of my own ignorance because I'm totally new to all of this. But it would help me, Under Sheriff, if you could give us a chart with the titles on it. I don't know the difference between a lieutenant and a sergeant. And if you could explain that in writing for me, that would be helpful.
Absolutely.
In all the
I'll
titles.
send you tomorrow, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you for doing that, because I get confused on it also. So if seeing Mr. White.
Josh, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but through you two. I don't have an issue with, and I think it's responsible for departments to be responsible in terms of what changes you need to make and where you need to shift, especially when you're talking about saving money and making sure you're covering, the services that we provide. But, and I do understand that some things are timely, they may come in the ninth hour, but I think we have to make sure that we're still sending whatever we have through an appropriate process. I don't want to receive a letter requesting the change. We need to have it, I'm only one person, I'd like to see an actual resolution that at minimum goes through, our finance department, goes through our director of administration, so that when we are taking action on it, that we make sure we have all of the pieces in place. If it's a specific grant, if it's, making sure that the accounting department is in order, and so on and so forth. I'll keep it short. So if we can make sure, through you, Madam Chair, to Josh, our Mr. Freeman, make sure that anything that comes to us is proper. We'll act on it appropriately, but I think we don't need to let this get sloppy, if you will.
Agreed.
Okay?
If I may, ma'am. Sir, we've asked for some leeway, the sheriff has, because sometimes things happen, and we want to save money, because if we don't, then we're going to be over. That's why this came up. We anticipated somebody coming back from a workers' comp. Unfortunately, he didn't, and that threw us into a tailspin. So that's why we have to ask for some leeway sometimes to keep our operation running and to stay within our budget.
Sure. Just one follow-up. Nope, totally appreciate that, and I just spoke to that. Sometime things are emergency. This is more so of a general sentiment. I'm going to be supportive tonight, but as a general sentiment, I wanted to communicate what I did.
We try to, sir.
No,
as you-
no
as you
issue.
know. Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. New and miscellaneous business?
Madam Chair, I've got just a couple things. I'm never not multitasking, and I listened to our public speaker. I didn't catch her name, but she talked about the closed captioning at ABC 12. So I was able to reach out to Matt Franklin, who's an anchor person there, and have name and contact information for the person who's in charge of closed captioning. So would be happy to give this to you if you'd like to take it. The other piece is I didn't want us to forget what Councilman Lloyd said or suggested earlier about appointments and going through committees, and I'm seeking some clarification on where that whole process stands. Let me describe what I think has happened. And we had an appointments committee. I believe my friend Commissioner Cousineau was the chair. Commissioner Shoemaker was the vice chair. I think Commissioner Cousineau has resigned that position, which made Commissioner Shoemaker the chair. Does that committee still meet? Does that committee still function? And would something like what we voted on earlier, should something like that go through that committee? I know there's been consternation about them meeting and us not really following recommendations, or maybe the feeling was that we didn't appreciate their work. So I'm just trying to figure out where all of that stands, given what Commissioner Lloyd said earlier.
I feel, my opinion, I feel the committee is important. It gave us a process, and people that are interested in being on that committee can get with me on that, because, we have another appointment coming up pretty soon. This committee would be going through, like, even applications. We have, like, the Veterans Director coming up, and that needs to go through a committee so that we can at least clean out the ones that qualify, because some of them, don't have, some of them don't fill out the application complete. So anybody that's interested in being that committee, I'm sure Mr. Shoemaker would still be interested in it. He's been on it in the past. Get with me on
Madam
that.
Chair, just clarification, are we speaking of appointments or appointments of professional staff?
Usually the committee board before did like appointments, as this is, plus they did recommendations for hiring purposes also.
But we have a committee that handles veterans of services and senior services, et cetera, and that's the Human Services Committee.
So, so you want to run the new hire through that, or just what's being brought up right now?
Hasn't that been the practice previously?
Pardon?
Has that not been the practice previously?
For for new hires?
Yes.
I don't believe it was. I think we had a committee. Mr. Cousineau, I know he was on.
When we set that up 3 years ago, it was for appointments and hiring of directors. And it was set up to be fair, equitable, not just for one commissioner. It was set up so that all areas of the county would be representative on that committee, all races, so that it avoided the practices that had been on this board for generations probably. And it was purely the whole process was taking care of your buddy. And there was never any review of anything. It's just, it would come up at the last minute. There was no vetting. It just, maybe Commissioner XYZ would have somebody that they had in mind. And so they'd go around and canvass for it. But that was for them. It wasn't for the county. And that was the general way things were run. Or various organizations would call up and tell the commissioners, we want this person, you vote for it. So it was to get around those types of obstacles, to move this county forward. And when we started that process, we put out we asked for applications. There was never even an ask for applications. It was just somebody knew somebody, and I'll get you in. So we started posting applications, or requests for applications. The quality of those people that started seeking those positions went sky high. And then it became hard to even pick one or recommend 2 or 3 of them because the quality of the people that applied went up, as I said. It gave people in this community hope that were well qualified for these positions that were being ignored before because of the way the system worked. And I feel, and I still feel, that's one of the best ways to move this county forward. Instead of doing things the way it's always been around here. I don't have to give a speech on the economic development of this county. All of us know what's happened. And not a lot has improved. The rest of the state is moving on. This county is still stagnant. So things have to change. And we, as leaders of this community, we need to make better selections. And that was the whole idea of setting that committee up. 1, to ask for people to apply. 2, to have people from around the county on that committee, somebody from the north end, south end, east, west, and the central, which is the city of Flint.
I don't dispute anything that you said, except that I was always under the impression that the appointments committee was only for appointments to outside boards and committees.
So what do you dispute?
It was never my understanding
through the
that
chair.
that was
Go
to
ahead.
hire directors.
That's what I'm saying, for the directors and these appointments to the various committees. You know, such as an appointment to the Genesee Health Systems, an appointment to the Road Commission, which turned out to be a fiasco as far as I'm concerned. But it was to get higher quality people that was well representative of this community.
Well, I don't agree
Whether
with
it's-
that, but.
Huh?
I don't agree with that statement, but go ahead.
Okay, well,
Be that as it may.
I mean,
I know you're opposed to things like that,
No, I
but that's,
mean-
I'm just explaining what
You're
I
saying that-
thought.
that it would- that we
Okay,
have
we're
a
not gonna
higher
argue back
caliber
and
of
forth.
people, and that's not,
So-
you know.
Well, that's
I don't
debatable.
I don't agree with that.
You're.
let's
yeah,
not
okay.
argue.
Okay,
Let's, you know,
okay,
I
we
mean,
all
this
have our
is-
own opinion.
Okay,
Well,
yeah.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Lloyd.
First of all, we've had a pretty good meeting tonight, and a little dialogue back and forth, and, abating the different perspectives, I think is healthy discussion, especially when it's done in a professional way. And there are going to be settings and various discussions that we're going to have some back and forth discussion, and I think it's encouraged. What we should encourage is professionalism, and I think my colleagues have done that. You know, I've had my own opinion about the, and I'm glad that my colleague mentioned it. I have my own opinions about the appointments committee. I agree with the reason why it was created. I have my opinion about applications not being requested in the past. I'm not going to talk negative about colleagues that sat in these seats before. Maybe folks had different perspectives and thoughts why they did or why they didn't do whatever. But I think that we should have a process, that we should receive applications, that we should vet candidates, that we should make sure that we hire the best persons for the jobs we're appointing to, whether it's a director role or appointing to a committee. And I actually also believe that every colleague, every one of my colleagues on this body feels the same exact way. Can't speak for the last board, but I believe this board wants to do the right thing. My concern is about how we go about making the selection, because regardless of whether we like it or not, there are politics at play. Whether we like it or not, folks are going to have folks that lobby them. Folks are going to have folks that they like to see. I mean, we're an elected body. That's just a natural dynamic, and it's the same case at every level of government. What I like to see in terms of the appointment committee is that it's either a committee of the whole or the appointments that are afoot are handled by whatever committee, standing committee, they're handled by. Because me as one person representing the 1st District of Genesee County, I don't want to be left outside of the discussion at the ground level when appointments are considered. I don't want to have a name brought to me, and then now I have to, I'm going to be transparent, now I have to work even harder because, 4 or 5 people has already picked one person, and maybe there's somebody else that I want to have an equal shot at it. So while we talk about transparency and picking the right person and, processes and all of that, let's not ignore another true and legitimate dynamic that exists. And it's something we got to decide as a current body how we want to handle it. So my suggestion would be either we do it as a committee of the whole, appointments committee at the beginning of our round of committees, every other Wednesday. That way, any board member that wants to be a part, they can sit in. It's the very first committee of the day. We go through whatever's before us, set out that process, or we either do it as a committee of the whole, or if there's a veteran committee appointment or a director of the road, appointments to road commissioner or G-Card, we send those through that appropriate committee. The folks on those committees have been appointed by the chair, and then that committee can make the recommendation. So one or the other, that's my sentiment.
Well, and if, I don't have to raise my hand, but I want consistency, because every time somebody changes in this seat, we don't follow what that person did, so you got this mess. So like Marty started it a certain way, and then the next year that became a chair, they changed it. So I want consistency. Josh brought up like the IT. We didn't even bring it to the body. We had an applicant, and he was good, and that's how we hired him. There was no decision. It was just brought in front of us. And I don't know if that's the correct way to do it. We need to look at the applications. And if we want to do it as a whole at the committee meetings when the applications come in, that's fine with me. But what we're trying to do as a committee, a subcommittee, is to narrow down the applicants that don't qualify. We're looking for certain things of their description of their job. And if they don't fit that description, then they need to be moved out. I know, we did G-Card, and we did an appointment with G-Card, and we took applications, and it wasn't just through Human Services. There's that committee sat together, and then we went through the applications. We talked about the people that were in front of us, and we had some people that were really, really qualified. And, we put, Stephanie in that spot because of the fact that she held that spot, and I felt that she was the most qualified at that time because she's worked the job. And that probably has a lot of play in any of them that come up, is the fact that they've been working the job, and they do have an advantage when they do apply because they know it, and we should recognize that.
Well, Madam Chair, my last statement, if we want consistency, then we need a consistent written policy on how that works.
Yeah. And that's what I agree with you, because bylaws can be changed like year to year. Through the corporate council, if we make it a policy, can the next people that come up, can they change the policy with a vote? Or something that's standard, that stays from year to year so that we don't have this confusion?
I think every board has the right to change what
Yeah,
they want to change.
Commissioner Winfrey's correct. I mean,
Each board can change.
each board can change the policy as it sees fit. That's democracy. I would point out to you that I believe you have an appointment policy. I'm not aware that this policy that I'm holding in my hands has ever been rescinded. Now, Josh, you could correct me if we're wrong here, but there's an appointment policy that adopted it says 21-556. I believe that policy remains in effect.
Yes, it does remain in effect, and the previous board that voted on it quickly disposed of it and did something entirely different.
That may be true, but there is a policy in effect that the County Board of Commissioners passed. Whether it's adhered to is another issue, but you have a policy. And you also, in your rules and procedures, Rule 8 deals with a point of personnel, 8.1, 8.2, and 8.3. You might want to take a look at that as well, because that remains in effect also. So it's not that you don't have policies. The question is whether you abide by them or not.
So can we have those sent out to everyone so that they have a current copy? And then we look through it, and then at the next committee meeting that we discuss this, we put this on the agenda to discuss how we want to handle this, because I think it's really important that we discuss it and make sure that it's the right way to do it. So.
One final question. I think that's a great action plan. We haven't heard from all of the colleagues. I'm not suggesting we have to hear from everybody tonight unless somebody has something else they want to say. But this appointment piece, because I don't know if that it will fall under what, government operations? Okay, so there we have 3 or 4 people. Obviously, anybody can chime in, but we have 3 or 4 people that will be voting. I think ultimately, what that policy is going to be in terms of appointment probably should be one that we vote on as an entire body, because at that point, it stops no one from making a suggestion that a policy be changed even on the floor. I'm not suggesting that that be done. What I am saying is that I think there's enough kind of interest in figuring out what that is and making sure it's consistent, that we probably should have everybody's buy-in and then have everybody vote as a body. And then we know what the will of the body is going forward as it relates to this. Thank you.
So.
Madam Chair, just to close the loop on my initial question, which sort of led to all of this, the status of the current appointments committee is that Sean Shoemaker's the chair. Are there other members? Because you asked for interest, so that caused me to think maybe there's no one else on it.
I was on the board as a chair. I can be on all boards.
So you and Sean, anyone else?
Commissioner Davis and Commissioner Winfrey are all part of the appointments committee.
Okay, the current.
The chair, Commissioner Shoemaker, asked that I email members of the committee about putting out notice for various vacancies that occur in different boards or commissions that you have appointing authority to. We did put out that notice, and we have received some interest in people being appointed to those boards.
Okay. Is there an expectation that the appointments committee, as it is currently constituted, will be meeting to look at people who want to be appointed to things?
So that's how it worked when we had the road commission piece, and then the board decided to just send all of the names up to the board for consideration. So the appointments committee was kind of irrelevant at that point on that particular
Okay, so it's not currently meeting?
It has not met since the date, since we put out notice for open seats. But that deadline, I think, fell when I was gone, so I haven't compiled everything to get them to meet.
So, Madam Chair, is there an expectation on your part, as the leader of the county commission, that this group will continue to meet and evaluate appointments that will then come to us?
Right, and I would like to have it at committee where we can discuss and how we want to perform this. I think it's still important to weed out the ones that aren't qualified.
Yeah, I no issue with that whatsoever. I'm just trying to figure out where the heck we are, because it seems like it disappeared. And then when Commissioner Lloyd said at the beginning today that we should have an appointments committee, or that they should be at least acting on things, we totally, he said it, and we went past it, and we would never have brought it up again, as far as I can tell, had I not mentioned it. So I just want to make sure everyone's on the same page with where we're at, where we're going. I totally agree that we should be following policy or change it if we don't like it. I think we probably expose ourselves if we are abiding by policies in one case and not in the other case. Seems very strange to me that a body would do that. So, thank you, I'm done.
Okay, any other, Mr. Kuzno?
Moving on to a different topic. Many of you are aware that there's been issues within the community of the emergency vehicles, the response time going down. And a lot of debate going on at different levels. As some of these issues in my community have come up and I started checking to see how things worked, it's very complicated between how 911 works and the ambulance supply in the county, and then you throw in the paramedics and stuff. But there's a lot of friction going on within the community. Some of the townships have contracted with ambulance companies themselves. And there's been a debate as to what is going on, if it's legal or not, and in talking with various people, including one attorney at least. As you know, we have courts to settle issues. And when you have multiple opinions from different attorneys, then something needs to be changed, or at least judged as to what is the proper interpretation. And so, like I said, it's a very complicated thing. I've delved into it, a lot, and I've come to the feeling that we should somehow come to some type of conclusion, or to bring it to a conclusion by appointing, and I don't even know what the process is after this last conversation, but that this board, maybe between now and the next meeting, think about ways that we could get an outside organization to look into that issue and bring back their recommendations to us as to what would settle some of the problem that's going on. There's more rumors that other communities are going to be separating from 911 itself and forming their own. As state law reads now is that 911 is supposed to dispatch the closest ambulance to whatever incident is happening. But due to these contracts and that different communities have, not always is the closest one being dispatched. And that's because of different interpretations of state law. And so that needs to be looked into, and I don't recommend that we as individuals or our body looks into that, but rather that we find, and I don't know exactly how, there's been some recommendation that the Greater Health Coalition look into it and come back with some recommendations. And we may not have the authority to do much. I don't know. But at least come back with some recommendations so that our citizens get the best proper care that they can get. I started this journey on another issue that happened in my community. And as it happened, you might have saw on TV 12, a lady was on there, her husband fell in her yard, or in the driveway, and couldn't get up. He was all bloodied and stuff, so they called 911, and they never did get a response after waiting for at least an hour and 30 minutes. There's some dispute on that time too. But at any rate, an opportunity to help some senior citizens was missed. And he was laying out into the cold for an hour and 30 minutes waiting for a response. And so that came up while I'm working on this. So it just, reaffirms to me that it's a serious issue that we need to look into. And so I'm asking the board to think about it over the next 2 weeks, whatever ideas that you have, and then, I would personally like the chair to, appoint somebody off from this board, a committee of 4, and to at least address just the idea of who should we depend on for expert advice. Because, I work in the health industry, and I don't have any idea how to go about it. So each of us have a different background, but I think we need some experts. And so think about it over the next 2 weeks, and I just throw that out to the chair that might be something she might want to do, because she has the authority to do it, to appoint a 4-person committee to look into that issue.
Thank you. And if I may, 911 has been a big concern for quite some time. I've sat on that board for 6 years, and it is very complex, especially when contracts come in where other vendors come in and try to contract communities. And they're kind of overriding state law, and I don't see how they can do that, but they are. And so when you have a contract and they're calling that person that they've contracted with, and you could have an ambulance right across the street from you, but 911 has to call that contract. And so there's that delay. And I think as commissioners, we're here to protect our residents and give them the best care possible, even though we may not have a lot of authority because they're a consortium. And I don't know what that means, but I'm sure the attorney could tell me. So I don't know what we can do to say. They have their own attorney. I know the attorney has changed because we had Attorney Laddie that was our attorney for years with 911. We have a new within the last 2 years. So there are some big hiccups there that I think need to be, but I don't know. I'm like with Mr. Cousineau. I don't know if our hands are tied on it. So maybe you can kind of give us where we can.
Yeah,
go.
your authority is extremely limited in what you can do. 911 has its own board, its own attorney. These contracts exist between the local municipalities and the ambulance companies. And while you certainly have the right to give your opinion as to what you think should occur, your ability to make something happen is extremely limited, because 911 is its own entity. So that's the short version of the answer.
But they do receive, millage money. They receive tax dollars, that we oversee. And if they're not doing what they're supposed to do to protect, how is that right?
Is it a millage or a surcharge?
It's
Surcharge.
The issue of what's right and what's not is not a legal issue. The issue for this Board of Commissioners is what can you do about it? And I think what Commissioner Cousineau is doing is bringing it to the attention of his colleagues and the public that's listening and watching tonight. And that certainly is something that this board can do. But legally, what can you force to happen? The answer is very little, because you're not the entity that controls the issue that's existing in the various municipalities.
But getting valuable information, like a board, committee gathering to see if somebody could give us an opinion, an outside opinion, that would be something that might be helpful. They wouldn't have to do it, but we could at least recommend.
Well, in terms of getting an outside legal opinion, I'm giving you the legal opinion right now, and that is that you don't really have any great authority to make something happen. in terms of an opinion as to how to better operate the situation out there, you would hope that 911 is doing that. You would hope that the local authority, the municipalities that entered into the contracts is doing that. My suggestion there is that you encourage the locals to get off the stick and do something about it to fix the problem. I think that's what was trying to happen in Flushing last night, is they're trying to bring attention to it and make something happen. I think that was the purpose of that meeting.
Madam Chair?
Yeah, Mr. Lloyd.
Two things that we can do, appreciate your sentiment, Corporate Counsel. Two things that we could do, I think Commissioner Cousineau's thoughts of having a committee appointed to have some more discussion about this, I think makes sense. And two things that we could do, we could very well identify the appropriate folks that we should be talking to that oversee, bring them into a committee meeting to have some discussion about it, raise concerns, that kind of thing. The other thing we can do is have our office to capture our sentiment in a document or a letter that we can send out to the various entities, if you will, that's responsible for 911 in the various areas, raising our corporate sentiment about what's happening with 911. Just to kind of raise some awareness. So those are two things that we can do. And the other piece is, you know, what ambulance companies like, we just had one very, very prominent in the community, I won't say the name. I used to negotiate the contracts for all of their employees that's just, you know, that's in the process of going out of business, that had a lot of vehicles, a lot of staff, you know, throughout the county. That impacts it as well. So, you know, another question is about the availability. You know, what is the density of, you know, companies in the community, and kind of see what that weighs against the call volume that we have. Those are all questions that we can get into in that setting, so.
Okay.
And Madam Chair, maybe the discussion can be larger than just the 911 issue. I think that's just part of it. I think how EMS services are delivered across the county is probably the bigger concern, and what the board's influence is on that can be, you know, discussed as a committee or with those entities.
Okay.
Yeah,
Mr.
I agree with what everybody's saying, especially the corporate counsel, you know, that we have very little legal authority to do anything. But we do have the ability to bring the attention of this to the county as a whole, so that those various entities take proper action for them to serve the community better, because I definitely feel that it can be, but it needs some type of study, and we can do that by, you know, recommending somebody to investigate at all levels, as Mr. Freeman was saying, and some of it is just there's not enough ambulances out there. Last week when this man fell, you know, as Tim Jones, the director of 911, said, is that it happened to be one of those days that there wasn't a lot of ambulances available to go out, you know, staffing levels, whatever the reasons were. But there are some things that can change, and we can maybe in the end come up with a recommendation and publicly make a recommendation that those various entities join together instead of separating like what they appear to be doing now and going their own direction at the expense of our residents in the entire county. And there's been a lot of accusations that the companies that are involved, they're cherry picking by coming out with these contracts with the more affluent communities. And that's leaving the lesser affluent communities at risk. And so that's, you know, part of the problem. But it's very complex, and it should be looked at with somebody that has, you know, more knowledge than what I have, and I think than what we have, but somebody that's impartial.
thank you for bringing up, a concern, because that's, we want to make sure that we are serving our people correctly, and I wouldn't want to be that person that's called 911 and sitting waiting. And if anybody's ever done that, I had to call. I mean, 5 minutes seems like 5 hours, so anyway, Mr.
Madam Chair, 911 as a service is the most vital service. Even when we talk public safety, even before we get to the police officer or the paramedic or the firefighter and so on and so forth, 911 is the vehicle or the bridge that gets folks there, so that's important. On another note, I also wanted to see if we could look at maybe doing a letter of support that would go to like ABC 12 and different media outlets in support of concern that's been raised tonight about the closed captioning piece. Maybe we can do a letter as a county board to send to those entities, kind of supporting that in its strongest form.
We could have, would you like Josh to draft one up and I'll sign it?
I think that would be awesome.
Okay, could you do that? Could you
I'll
write that?
work with Corporation Counsel to get
Okay,
that letter drafted.
and you can write that in red. There we go. All right. Any other discussion tonight? Yes, Ms. Brown.
I think our meeting started on a positive note of joy from Neil Seward and his wife. I like to end the meeting on some joyful notes, if I could. Happy Administrative Professionals Day to everyone who works at the county and falls in that role. We want you to know we appreciate everything that you do, so thank you for your service. The other thing that gave me joy today was attending an MTA event. You and I, Commissioner Ellenberg, had a chance to visit with the governor today, who was in town in District 4 at the MTA fueling station. And MTA is doing a phenomenal job with their new hydrogen buses. And so just to let the public know, in 2009, they utilized 1.2 million gallons of diesel. However, in 2021, MTA utilized only 30,000 gallons of diesel. They are really making progress with making our environment a cleaner place. The other thing that gave me joy today in the final comment is Commissioner Davis, Commissioner Ellenberg, and I had a chance to witness our own Sheriff Swanson in Lansing today, who made a wonderful presentation about the GHOST program. And so that gave Genesee County a bright star to the entire state for other county executives to see what we're doing here. So I just wanted to end that on 3 notes that make me extremely proud to be in Genesee County.
Thank you. And it was a proud day. We had a lot of good things this week, going to Lansing and learning a lot of new things, some savings, hopefully. And, and today was really bright to see the governor here, and that we're like 10 years ahead of a lot of communities with our fuel consumption of our bus system. So, I mean, that's something very proud to be, that somebody thought outside the box. And I'm not going to drink coffee out of the water that comes out of this hydrogen buses, but Ed Benning said he will drink coffee with you if you want to drink the water that comes out. Because the exhaust of these buses is a big smoke, but it's pure. It's like 99% pure that you could drink it. So for me, that makes me feel good, because when I've been behind a bus, usually it makes me sick because of the diesel fuels. And so I think that's something really great that we need to be proud of, the fact that we are thinking ahead in Genesee County. So, any other business tonight? I think it was very informational and still timely. So, okay. I know it's all in favor. Okay, motion. It's